I'd like to call this meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners to order and ask Mr. Steve Johnson if he'll present the invocation.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we begin our business anew this year, and Father, I just pray that you would renew our minds with the Spirit of Christ as we begin the deliberation of this county this year. We pray your blessing upon this county, that you will help us to prosper. And Father, for this board and our staff, that you will give us wisdom, that we'll make the right decision, that it will be in accordance with your pleasure, and that it will benefit the folks of this county. And our utmost obligation will be to serve you and them to the best of our ability throughout this year. And we ask that in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you. Please stand as we honor our flag with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Mashburn, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, we do have just a couple of adjustments to the agenda. Under appointments before the board, Mr. Paul Holtberg will not be here. In his place will be Doan Bradley. And then we do have an item to add under closed session. That will be to consult with the attorney. That is 143-318 11A3.
Thank you.
I believe those are all the adjustments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Does any other commissioner have any adjustments? If not, is there a motion we approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's been made. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Like sign. Motion carries. For this presentation of special recognitions and awards, we'd like to recognize Joyce Everidge at this time. We would like to present you this plaque for appreciation for your years of dedicated service to Iredell County. I haven't worked with you 20 years, but I've known you that long. I've known in fact, I didn't even know she was retired, but I do know Joyce and know how much an asset she's been to our community, and I'm sure she's been the same asset to the county. So thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to recognize David Swan on behalf of Crossroads Behavioral Health Care.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I have requested that the board endorse a resolution that I believe you all have seen to support a federal grant to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is the federal arm of the Health and Human Services on the mental health side, that we would like to submit. This project is a project that has a target population of homeless persons in Iredell County, those especially that are experiencing substance abuse problems or those experiencing co-occurring substance abuse and mental health problems. This population will include residents of the homeless shelters as well as the domestic violence shelter operated by Fifth Street Ministries and others who do not have a permanent address. The project will integrate services provided by Fifth Street, the federally funded medical clinic, Statesville Family Medicine, the Mooresville Soup Kitchen, New River Behavioral Health. New River will provide outreach programming, pre-treatment, treatment, and case management services on the campus of Fifth Street Ministries and conduct outreach programming in Mooresville at the Mooresville Soup Kitchen. I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of that, but don't want to take too much of your time.
Mr. Swan, is this a competitive grant?
Yes, it is a competitive grant. There'll be people all across the nation or agencies all across the nation
And the
applying.
maximum we can hope for is 400,000,
That's correct.
or we could get less.
We could get less or we could not get anything.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like to make this presentation of this resolution. Resolution is in support of Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration grant application, whereas the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration and Division of the United States Department of Health and Human Services is accepting application for grant funds that will be used to expand its use abilities to provide integrated and comprehensive response to a targeted, well-documented substance abuse treatment capacity problem and/or improve the quality and intensity of the services. And whereas, in response to the request for applications, Crossroads Behavioral Health Care, New River Behavioral Health Care, Fifth Street Ministries, and Mooresville Soup Kitchen, collectively known as the Work Group, are in collaboration to prepare an application to the SAMA HSA grant fund that will be used to provide any array of services for the homeless population in Iredell County. And whereas the project will integrate services that are provided by Fifth Street Ministries, Community Health Outreach Clinic in Mooresville, Statesville, Family Medicine, Mooresville Soup Kitchen, and New River Behavioral Health Care. And whereas the maximum amount of funds available through the SAMSA grant will be $400,000, funds being allocated each year, 3 consecutive years. Now, therefore, be resolved by Iredell County Board of Commissioners as follows. Support is hereby expressed in the Work Group SAM HSA application and funding, and appreciation is hereby extended to members of the board securing the grant funds that will be used to assist Iredell County's homeless individuals who are experiencing substance abuse and mental health problems. This 5th day of January 2010. Iredell County Board of Commissioners, Council of Leadership. This time I'd like to recognize Ken Robertson, who will present the MLK Partners proclamation.
We've got Dawn Bradley up here with us to receive this, and I shall read it. This is a proclamation in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. States, whereas the Greater Statesville Chamber of Commerce Priority House Impact Jeffrey Williams, Chairman of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. We give this to you.
And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to say thank you to the county commissioners for this proclamation. And I think it really does show the strength of our community and the community's commitment to unity and diversity.
Thank you.
We will now enter into a public hearing to consider the economic development incentives of $31,336 for an undisclosed company, Mike Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The company that I come before you to discuss tonight is Talon Systems, Inc. The company is a 50-year-old privately held company from Canada. They are a manufacturer of high-quality, ready-to-assemble furniture and organizational systems. They have products sold in many prominent retailers across this country, including Iredell County-based Lowe's Home Improvements. Over 5 years, Talon Systems will bring 150 new full-time jobs to our community. These jobs will pay an average of $12.75 an hour and will cover at least 50% of each of their employees' health care benefits. We would request to be able to use the Iredell County Industrial Grant Program based upon a 0.356 portion of the $3.5 million of new taxable investment to Iredell County. As their average wage is less than what the state's 3J wage is for the county, we are requesting somewhat of a reduced grant for this company. But again, it's based on 5 years and the $3.5 million of new taxable investment.
Now declare this meeting to be in a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak either for or against this application? Hearing no one, I declare this public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we grant this request and we provide the Talon System an Economic Development Incentive Grant of $31,336.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Mr. Mashburn, administrative matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the administrative matters, the first item will be a request from the Elections Department to authorize for an application of a grant. Becky Gallagher, the Director of Elections, will make that presentation.
Thank you all. I would like to ask you to change the amount on your paper for the grant amount. I would like to add to that $700, which would change the amount to $9,196.05. We are asking for your approval to apply for these federal this federal grant money to make 88 changes to our one-stop sites. This comes in, these accessibility issues were raised when the Disability Rights North Carolina organization did a survey in 2008 during the election. They did all 100 counties in North Carolina. And in their survey, they found that most one-stop sites were accessible, but they did have 3 areas of concern. Those areas were parking, curbside voting, and the entryway into the sites. So we are asking for this grant money to make changes. The only permanent change we will make will be to our Board of Elections office. And we would like to change the walkway into the building. We need to fix a curb cut, and we also need to have a crosswalk across the parking lot because of the flow of traffic. The other changes that we will make will be temporary, just for the fact that we will sometimes have to move one-stop sites, as we are going to this year in Mooresville. So this basically is just to ensure that all of our one-stop sites are accessible to anybody that wants to come in to vote.
Any questions? Since this is an administrative matter, would we approve this on consent?
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a request to appropriate some federal equity sharing funds to purchase a 3D scene digitizer for the crime lab.
Good evening. We're wanting to, again, appropriate these funds from our federal equity sharing, $51,200, to purchase the digitizers 3D to add to the crime lab, to further put together crime scenes. This will basically allow us to do things pretty quick that we can get in, get out, that now it takes quite a bit of time to process a crime scene. And also it will allow us, when we get to court, to actually take the court system, the folks, the jury, through a virtual tour of the crime scene and actually pretty much put a picture together of what happened. I can entertain any questions if you want to get in any further in this, but pretty much self-explanatory.
Any questions? Okay. Consent?
That's it.
Thank you.
Mr. Don Wall, the DSS Director, will make a request for a budget amendment to recognize special children's adoption funds.
Commissioners, here to request approval of Budget Amendment 39 to recognize special children's adoptions funds in the amount of $30,000 and to allow us to contract legal services to expedite a backlog of adoptions to the termination of parental rights process. We have earned this money by placing 2 teenage children. The state in their adoption program gives the counties incentive, and we've placed 2 hard-to-place children, and we get $15,000 apiece, and so that's the $30,000, and we have to use that money to enhance our adoption program. So our request is that you approve this budget amendment.
Any questions, Mr. Wall? Okay. Consent? Thank you, Don.
I have another request, requesting the Commission's approval of a Budget Amendment 38 to recognize funding for workforce functional assessments in the amount of $3,600. And we have people in the program sometimes that state that they have no work capacity. So we refer them to the special physicians in Charlotte to go through testing to see if they have any capacity to work. If they do have capacity, the job is their goal, and they have to work toward employment. If they do not have capacity to work, then they have to go elsewhere.
Okay. Any questions from Mr. Wall? Okay, consent?
That's it.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Next item is a presentation for the Longitude 80 Dairies Project and award of a loan from the North Carolina Rural Center, and also adoption of ordinance for the Building Reuse and Restoration Grant. Steve Warren will make that presentation. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mashburn. Members of the board, in November of last year, the North Carolina Rural Center sent us a letter granting us $240,000 under the building reuse fund that they administer. We've prepared an ordinance to go along with this award, and the stipulation, of course, is that Longitude 80, when they redevelop what was formerly the Homer's Truck Stop on Stamey Road, must create a certain number of jobs. They have to have 24 jobs created 6 months from the announcement of the award from November, and in order to have the promissory note forgiven by the county. So basically what we are doing is working as intermediary between the state with the program of the Rural Center and the private entity Longitude 80. And these have to be full-time jobs, likely to be in manufacturing. The reason that the amount was halved was that they determined that Tier 3 counties would not receive the maximum amount under this program, which is $480,000. And I believe that was the figure that David Hardigan had given you last fall when he initially approached the county, and he and Susan Blumenstein discussed this with the board. But if they fulfill the requirements for the full-time positions, they will likely be manufacturing jobs, good paying positions, and that the loan will be forgiven. And of course, there will be reporting requirements that the county will monitor in addition to Mr. Hardigan, who is the program administrator. I've discussed this with Ms. Blumenstein and Mr. Pope. There may be some concerns about the format and the form of the loan agreements that you have in your packet. Basically, what we're here tonight is to ask for approval of the project ordinance as well as the loan agreements between the Rural Center and the county, and also the county and Longitude 80. And I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
I understand this thing, Mr. Pope or Mr. Warren, this money is awarded to the county and we in turn give it to Longitude 80. They sign in a promissory note to meet the terms of the contract. If they don't meet the terms of the contract, what happens then?
There are several ways they could fail to meet the terms of the contract. One way, for example, is they could hire 23 people rather than 24. They pay a penalty of $10,000 per job. So what we would do is if they meet the terms of their commitment for 6 months, the note is forgiven. If they only meet it on a pro rata basis, it's forgiven on a pro rata basis. One of the documents that's not included here that I'd like to see included is some kind of security document whereby their note is secured either by some deed of trust or some pledge of some collateral of some kind. I don't think there's a problem with that. I haven't actually talked to any of the Longitude 80 people about that, but I would not think that would be a problem, and I think it would be a prudent thing on our part to ask for some collateral. I spoke to Mr. Hardigan about that a week or so ago, and he said that some governmental units did require collateral, and so he didn't think my suggestion was out of line.
Well, that's what prompted my question. I didn't see where we had much muscle in this if they didn't. I think that'd be a prudent thing to do.
I understand.
I would like to point out, in the interest of full disclosure, I guess, it's come to my attention that one of the members of this organization has leased a house from my wife for a 2-month period. And I'd like for you to know that so you can determine whether that colors my judgment or not. But I reviewed the documents. I'm okay with them. There are a few typos in them. But I would suggest that in addition to these documents, we require some collateral.
Is that something we could go ahead and approve this request based contingent upon the execution of some deed of trust, as Mr. Pope suggests?
Approved by motion.
Yes, subject to approval of my approval of some collateral.
Okay.
It might be a certificate of deposit or cash or a deed of trust or whatever seems the most efficient.
I'd make that motion. I just think it's good business to have, something on your side in case things go awry. You never know what happens.
Okay. You've heard the motion. Any further discussion?
So what was the request, the motion when it comes to amount? You have an amount?
I'm willing to, well, my motion is we approve the total amount, but there be some means in this contract to where there's some recourse on our part, that if they don't meet the terms of the contract, then we could either put a lien on the property, or they put a security deposit or money in escrow or something, whatever Mr. Pope feels is the best vehicle to do it. I'm rely upon his judgment, but I do think we need.
Mr. Pope, is there any amount we should put on it?
Well, I'd like to see the full amount secured.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how to do that. I think it depends on what the collateral is. They might have a piece of property that's worth $300,000 that they'd want to put up. That would over-secure it. But I think it sort of depends on what the collateral is. But basically, my view is that this ought to be, as Mr. Johnson said, fully collateralized.
Okay.
And, yeah, I would say, too, if it's a non-liquid thing, it needs to be quite a bit more than the amount of the loan, and even as a cash collateral, more than the loan, right? Okay. So
Steve, could I ask you to include all 1, 2, and 3 into that motion?
1, 2, and 3.
Adoption of the grant project ordinance
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
and the loan performance agreement, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
And then the agreement, include all that into one motion.
That's fine. I would incorporate all that into my motion, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Like sign, motion carries.
Okay, we now have representatives of Recreation, HR, and Administration here to present the next item, which is to apply for a Fit Community Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mashburn. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Department as well as the Wellness Program, and I have Sarah Campbell, our Wellness Coordinator, with me. And we would like permission to apply for a grant from the North Carolina Health and Wellness Program. It's a trust program established by the state. It's a non-match grant. The amount is $60,000, and we will need to get your permission to approve for the designation as a fit community, which Sarah will explain in a minute, as well as get the approval to make application for this grant. We hope to apply the grant funds to some projects to benefit the park that's being developed at Scotts Rosenwald Park, as well as some of our wellness programs. And we do have some stipulations that we have to meet. We have to work with a number of different entities in the community, which I think will be very beneficial in terms of improving our working relations with the farmers markets, local farm community, and the nutritional programs through the Ag Extension Office and the Health Department. And we have already put together a lot of folks working on this already, hoping that the commissioners will see fit to give us the formal approval to move ahead and send in the application. But I'd like to turn it over to Sarah for just a minute, and she's going to describe some of the work we'd like to do, providing that we do get this grant.
With some of the grants funds provided, we would like to put some outdoor exercise equipment at the new Scotts Rosenwald Park. Things that would include exercise bikes, elliptical machines, various forms of cardiovascular exercise, as well as weight machines. This would give employees the opportunity to exercise if they don't have access to a gym membership or things like that, but it would be a good opportunity to increase their access to physical activity means. We would also touch on nutrition by working with the Statesville Rotary Farmers Market. We'd like to add a sign to increase awareness of the market and also to increase knowledge of the hours that it's open, hopefully gearing in some more county employees to utilize the farmers market so they can get more fresh produce. Also, as an incentive item, we would like to offer something along the lines of a veggie buck as incentives to employees so that they could trade those in for free produce to increase their consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables. But those are some of the ideas we had for utilizing the grant funds if we're given permission to apply for the grant.
Okay.
Well, that's all I have, but I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Consent?
Consent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 11, or memo number 11, is a request to distribute, approve to distribute a request for proposal seeking centralized addressing solution. Deputy County Manager Tracy Jackson, make that presentation.
Good evening. I'm here tonight on behalf of a group of my colleagues that are sitting here in the audience that have been working on a committee to help try to resolve some of the addressing issues in Iredell County that you may or may not be familiar with. And if I can, I'd just like to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that the county has faced and some potential ways that we can design and the communications between the different departments and the fact that they all use different systems to track addresses and to enter addresses. There's the potential, and it's rare, but it can happen, that time is lost trying to locate a victim due to a bad address. There are multiple departments that are inputting data in separate databases, which also can add to some potential for confusion. And at this particular moment, there's no universal means to correct inconsistencies, aliases, or track obsolete or retired addresses. So there's a lot of information out there that's not useful. There may be, a good amount of information that's just not accurate that needs to be corrected. One possible solution is a software system that would manage our addresses so that each department has to go to a central processing point in order to get a correct address. This will increase the accuracy and reliability of our address data that currently is on file. It'll help to streamline the address creation and validate those addresses and help to maintain those databases. Also helps to reduce the errors associated with manually entering the addresses into multiple databases, which occurs right now. So our recommendation is to develop a request for proposals for a service or product that will create a centrally managed address database, primarily for 911 use, but also recognizing that it's going to benefit many other departments and agencies throughout county government. We have checked with the North Carolina 911 Board, and this purchase is eligible for the use of 911 funds. We estimate that it'll be in the neighborhood of $120,000 for the purchase. Annual maintenance on this type of product is estimated to be $12,000 a year. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to entertain any questions. Basically, what we're asking for again is just request to distribute or disseminate a RFP in order to seek a central addressing solution for the county.
So we're going to send this out to possible vendors or people who do this type of work?
Correct.
Okay.
And of course, two things still have to occur. One is you have to budget the $120,000 from the 911 funds for this, and we're estimating that we can do this for about $120,000. But I guess we really don't know until we get some proposals back in, and then of course you would. We would bring back to the board to award a contract to a consultant to provide this service to us.
These 911 funds are the ones where they've changed the rules of what we can use it for.
Right. They have really limited what can be used. We're hopeful that that'll change in the future. There is some study underway, and hopefully that'll be addressed in the next legislative session. But we do know, after consulting with the board, that this is eligible.
Basically, you're not talking about changing the addresses. It's just putting them in a central source. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's just cleaning up the existing database and making sure that as new addresses are added, that they're validated, and that it's a streamlined process. Nothing against staff. They do an excellent job. I'd put them up against anybody in the state in terms of the work that they do. But it is difficult because we have multiple databases, and there's a lot of potential for error because of that.
What's the estimated time to complete this project from beginning to end, Mr. Jackson? Any idea?
I don't know for sure. I think that's one of the things that we would try to specify once we do a little more research.
Okay.
When we put that out for requests for proposals.
Okay.
I would hope within a year or less.
I'm not going to hold you to it. I just wondered.
Okay.
There's a lot of loose ends.
Right, and that's something that we could report back to the board once we have put out those requests for proposals.
Okay.
Any other questions? Consent?
Consent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank our department heads for being here tonight and showing their support for this.
Item H is a request for you to award a contract to Summit Developers for construction of the new animal control facility. Of course, that would be contingent upon the document review and approval of those documents by the county attorney. Lynn Niblock, who is Special Projects Director, will make the presentation. We have others here that could respond to questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mashburn. Good evening. Commissioners. Before I get started, I want to make sure that everyone received this attachment. It should have been laying at your place, which is the amended project ordinance for this. Does everyone have a copy of that? If not, I have a couple of additional copies if anyone needs one. You should have had a cover sheet saying attachments for item H, memo number 12, and then on the back of that, there would have been the actual project ordinance.
Does everyone have that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page, so I'll proceed. As Mr. Mashburn said, we did receive the bids for the animal control shelter. I was pleased with the response we got from the contractors. We had a number of bidders, qualified bidders on that project. In the memo I sent out originally, you should have attachment of those with a breakdown of their bids. But the bottom line is we got some good bids, and the low bidder happened to be Summit Developers out of Salisbury with a total bid of $2,050,873. We have, Mr. Lale, the architect, and myself have done some research on that company. We have not found any negative response from any of the contractor or any of the customers or the engineers and architects that have worked with that company on past projects. And I've also in the memo attached some information and comments by Mr. Lale and also by Mr. Evan Williams, who is the lead architect from Daggett and Griggs, who have worked on that. So we've done our due diligence in checking the references of the company, their bid, everything was in order. And so our recommendation would be to award that bid to the low bidder, which is Summit Developers, in the amount of $2,050,873, subject to the review and approval of the contract by the county attorney, as Mr. Mashburn stated. I do need to make you aware, as I'm sure you are, that if you desire to approve the award of the contract, then we will first, the board will first need to amend the revised project ordinance, which is a document that I just asked to make sure that everybody had the latest copy of. And I'll be glad to try to address any questions anyone may have at this time.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion that we amend the project ordinance and how to continue that, and then approve the awarding of the contract?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Request for approval of December 8th minutes.
Motion to approve, Mr.
consent?
Chairman.
Approval of consent agenda, which includes items A through D, items F through G and I.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Announcements of vacancies occurring on boards and commissions. Criminal Justice Partnership Program Committee, one announcement. Board of Equalization and Review, 6 announcements. Are there any appointments to any boards and commissions from our reminders list from previous meetings?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the Board of Health, I'd like to nominate Dr. Rob Monson and Mr. Lance Demaray.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I move the nominations be closed and accept these two by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Any others? Unfinished business. New business. County manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to add tonight. I will have a report at the mid-monthly meeting, though.
Okay. In a closed session, I move we enter into closed session regarding legal, pursuant to illegal GS 143-318-11A3. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. there a motion we move back into open session?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Is there any further business to come forward this board?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, stand to your feet.